You're listening to Psychology Inside Out podcast. Here we interview professionals, researchers, and fellow students on psychology-related topics. In this episode, I talk to Babette Porcelijn, industrial designer, author, and sustainability researcher. Babette is known for her work on uncovering the hidden environmental impact of everyday consumption and making complex sustainability data accessible to a broad audience. She is the author of The Hidden Impact, the founder of the Think Big Act Now, a platform that helps people and organizations better understand the environmental impact of the everyday choices. In our conversation, we explore the psychology behind consumption, why meaningful change is often difficult, and how individuals and systems can move toward a more sustainable and equitable future. We hope you enjoy this episode. Babette, thank you very much for finding the time in your busy schedule. And to start with, it would be nice if you could talk a little bit about your career path, because you started your career as industrial designer and later became known for your work for hidden environmental impact and everyday consumption. So could you briefly tell our listeners about your journey and what led you to focus on sustainability and systematic change?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me for this interview. First of all, indeed, I am an industrial design engineer, and I studied in Delft. Afterwards, I worked at agencies for about 10 years. Then I started my own studio, and I did that for 3 years, and I was really busy, etc. And I had fun. It was really nice to do design for companies. And then in 2014, I was at home with my husband, and we sat on the couch, and the kids were out playing, and we talked. He showed me a lot of things that were going on about sustainability, climate change, deforestation, the scale in which we are actually destroying our living world, and how that impacts our future. And it was not that I didn't know something was going on. I was always worried about the environment, but this time I saw the scale in which we were doing these things, and it was really the first time I really let it sink in, and that was the moment I just changed my whole life. It was a life-changing event. One of the examples of the things he said was that we each day the world loses 27 million trees, and we need trees not just because we need wood or something, but because it absorbs CO2 and it creates clouds because of the water cycle. So it's really important in the water cycle. Areas will go 40% drier if it's deforested. So, and for biodiversity, 80% of biodiversity on land lives in forests, etc. So these forests have really very important role in our world. So I said, in all my naivety, I said, why would you cut them if they're so important? And then he said, yeah, it's often to make way for agricultural land, especially for feed crops. Yeah. And Holland is one of the biggest importers of these feed crops because we are very big in cattle. So to feed our cattle, our cows and pigs and chickens. So in the end, it's for the piece of meat on our plate. That's why in a big portion we cut trees. And I was like, oh, so every time I eat meat, I am kind of co-responsible for a piece of jungle that is cut down. And I chose to never eat meat again, to become a vegetarian. And and we talked the whole afternoon. There were so many things that he showed me that he found, studies and infographics and things he was interested in. There were actually 3 things that made this big shift in my mind. And the first one was the fact, it was the scale of this thing. Like I said, it's so huge. This is really not, the environment is not something for people who like to walk on a Sunday afternoon, to walk in the forest. It's not for tree huggers. This is for our own future and the future of our children. What are we doing? We are destroying our own world, and the safety and our welfare and everything is at stake. So this is much bigger than I used to think. So that was reason one why I made this big change that day. The second one was the fact that I always used to think that we here in Holland were really transforming our economy to be more sustainable because we're building windmills, wind turbines, we are investing in solar panels, we are driving electrical cars, so we're fine. We're doing just fine. But I realized that day that our impact is not so much taking place here, and the changes that we make here only address the impact that we have here, but it doesn't address the fact that all these products that we import and use here are made elsewhere, and this production of everything that we use here, we never take it into account. So we moved our production and our impact to the other side of the world where it can go on just but hidden from view. So there's something important going on, and I thought I never knew about this. I never realized it. I am an industrial designer. I mean, I'm responsible for designing products that are produced elsewhere, and I'm responsible for these supply chains, you know? Yeah. I should know about these things at least, but even I never realized the impact on the other side of the world. And the third thing that really got me going was the fact that I used to think that politics should make the difference, should tell us what to do and what not to do. Big companies are causing all this impact. So, and I am as a consumer or a citizen, I'm completely powerless. I can't do anything about this. But then I realized, wait, if I eat meat every day, or if I buy a new car or whatever I do, I am kind of unaware but co-responsible for the impact that it caused on the other side of the world, producing this thing or producing the agriculture or deforestation, things like that. I'm co-responsible because I paid for it and I choose to consume this. So, as a person, as an individual, I am pulling strings that make a big difference, because everything that is produced in the world, or almost everything that is produced in the world, in the end comes somewhere, in the end it comes to a consumer or a citizen. Yeah. So we are pulling strings, and I have no clue what I'm doing. But I can make a difference if I start understanding how this works. So that's when I started.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the answer.
Exactly. No, thank you for the introduction. I mean, this is very clear, all the factors, right? And exactly already in the introduction, you just mentioned very important things, which are misconceptions as well, right? So we will talk about them. But that to understand that cutting the tree is not just a simple thing. It's really complex. Everything you do, right, is interconnected in a sense. And exactly as you said, that even you actually can do a difference, not only the politicians. And actually we can make a bigger difference sometimes because we wait until they decide and so on, and it's never happened. Exactly. So maybe moving on a little bit with your journey then. And in a hidden impact in your book, you mentioned also this environmental damage happens out of sight, right? And you also just mentioned it right now. Yeah. Could you also maybe talk about some hidden impact in addition to what you mentioned, and why it is difficult for people to grasp this invisible consumption?
To give another example is take a car. Did you know that to produce a car, there is an equivalent of 6 years of driving? The energy it takes to drive a ar for 6 years, that's the amount of energy it costs to produce a new car. So a new car already, kind of energy-wise, drove for 6 years.
In a minus, in a sense, yeah.
In a sense. It didn't, but in a sense. So just to give a feel for the order of magnitude, how energy intense it is to produce a new car. And that's for all the big materials. So it's the steel, it's the plastics, it's the aluminum, the glass. So the 4 big materials. And then I didn't even count all the computers that are in the car. There are hundreds of computers inside one car. And computers are way more harmful than these kind of simple materials. So producing a new car is immensely impactful. But then if we look at driving, we only look at the gasoline or the diesel, the emissions during the use phase. And we often leave out the fact that these products are produced and how much energy that costs or how much impact this causes. It's not just energy, it's also pollution and loss of nature and different kinds of impacts. So
Also health, because we don't sometimes have the negative health effects right away, right? Quite often it's accumulating through the years.
sorry?
So we don't. It's accumulating through the years. Like for instance, breathing polluted air, it will be maybe in 10 years effect. So we don't have it right away. We don't even count on it, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So these are the effects, the effects that it has for society. Yeah, true. And it's not just here, but also on the other side of the world. It has very big effects on the health of people. But even in Holland, air pollution is one of the 10 factors of earlier deaths, causes of death. So it's in the top 10 causes of death. So it's killing people.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. It's very, like, you know, it's a wealthy country, so people wouldn't expect, and the quality of air is not the worst in the world again. If we are talking about China or India, obviously it's even worse. Yeah, so no.
Whereas I must say that China is making the sustainable transition way faster than we do, where the West, and especially America at this moment, is really, really resisting the changes. China embraces them and goes really fast forward, leaving us behind.
Could you give us a few examples?
Yeah, I must say that they're not really doing all the things right, but the things that they do fast and big scale and make a big difference. So the big cities are not as smoked as they used to be because cars are all electrical now.
Yeah.
It's huge. And another example is the fact that they, in the last few years, they built 1,100 power plants that burn garbage, which of course is a big lock-in on the linear economy. So I'm not very happy with it, but the fact that they can scale up that big and the fact that they were the biggest emitter of plastics in the ocean, and they now they burn all that stuff and it doesn't get emitted anymore. So they can really do things fast, but I must say I'm not a fan of the fact that they burn garbage and they're even importing garbage now because because they have built too many plants. So they're really that's a big lock-in in the linear economy, which is problematic, of course, if you want to go to a circular economy. But still they go fast and leaving us behind. So I think it's the law of how do you say that in English? De wet van de remmende voorsprong. The ones that are in front, the front runners become the laggards. And that's kind of an economic law. In the end, they become the laggards because they were the front runners. And that is what's happening to us now, is that we are becoming the laggards because we don't continue being the front runner, because there is too much lock-ins in the way we used to do things and too much resistance against innovation and becoming more sustainable. And China is just going beyond us and leaving us behind.
Yeah. So that we are too slow still.
We're too slow. Yeah. We're too slow becoming sustainable.
Yeah, and why do you think people remain so deeply attached to consumption patterns, and that are especially these consumption patterns that are harmful for the planet and well-being? And do you have some suggestions? And yeah, maybe like we can split it into why and then what can be done about it.
Yeah, I think there are a few reasons why people are addicted to consumption. First of all, because it's very convenient and fun, and people just like it. And I get that. You can't really blame people to like buying new things. It's also something that our brain really is hardwired to like, because in times of difficulty and scarcity, which we actually throughout human history was always the case.
Yeah.
It's wise to like new things and to embrace them and want to have them and keep them with you, because it improves your enhances your ability to survive. In our day and age, this hardwired way of survival instinct is no longer needed, but it's still in our system. So it doesn't help anymore. It's the same with eating too much. We come from a history where it was always a challenge to have enough to eat. So you always had to take in whatever you could find, build up some fat, because then you can endure longer when there are times of scarcity. This was the way for the body to make sure that you can survive hard times. In this day and age, there is too much food. You can easily become fat, eat too much, and just gain weight until a point where you are really gonna get unhealthy or even die from it. But we have no system in our brain to stop us, because it was never necessary. So that wasn't hardwired that we needed some border, some stop in our minds. So and the same goes for buying new stuff. At the same time, I also think that we were culturally influenced by decades of marketing influences. We were always taught that world trade, growing economies are the way to prevent wars. At least that's a story that I grew up with. Because if people or countries are trading, they benefit more from peace than from war. So buying is actually helping us keep the world safe. That was the story I grew up with. So it was a good thing to buy and buy more and spend as much as you can and earn as much as you can to keep this system going. And we just recently started to understand that this is killing our planet and undermining our own future. And we have really a hard time to get to terms with that new reality and that new insight. It's not very new, of course, because the Club of Rome already told us in 1972 that this is what's at stake and what's going wrong. But it wasn't really embraced into policies or into the economy. So we kept on thinking that we can grow and grow and grow endlessly. And that influenced our culture, our way of thinking, and we forgot we kind of forgot to look at the environment as a thing to cherish and to protect, in order to keep on having well-being for everyone in the world. So yeah, it's kind of hardwired, but it's also a cultural thing.
Yeah, I can say that for people from Eastern Europe, it's even that they didn't have access actually to goods. So they therefore, whenever they finally have money and have like a lot of things that they can buy, they really think that they deserve it, So and only after some time they also start, I think, realizing that actually, yeah, maybe the information comes, that yeah, maybe it's not good, but yeah, I think it's also generational a little bit. maybe in different countries, slightly different ages, but yeah, definitely agree that it's hardwired. Yes, and especially I really like your example with overeating, and it's also overconsumption, basically just of calories.
Yeah, so what you would describe is the fact that people come from a situation of really poverty and shortage. And if people are really poor and their well-being is under stress, moving upwards and buying more things really helps to improve people's lives. And that is a good thing. And that is okay. And that can be achieved within planetary boundaries. So let's be really clear about the distinction of these two things. So the first, getting to within a social foundation, so people have a good life, that is a good thing. So in that sense, consumption can rise. But from that floor going upwards and getting into a zone of overconsumption and just spilling, spoiling, and fast furniture, fast fashion, fast everything, fast food is actually doing more harm than it brings us any more pleasure or any more happiness or any more well-being. It
No,
just
I agree.
actually it undermines those things. It undermines your happiness, it undermines your health, and it undermines your well-being. It's really important to see the difference between getting to the floor and going further towards overconsumption.
I agree, but at the same time, the thing is, no, the only difference basically that I wanted to say is that it's important also that the information about sustainability comes. Because, for instance, let's say when I was growing up, this information never came, I only learned about it much later in life. But I think it was also not that available, like the research only came, it came much slowly than maybe needed. Yeah. No, but I agree. No, thank you for mentioning also these things. And yeah, it's not like, oh, let's restrict everyone. And but also I think very important to talk here, and it's quite often also talked in the conferences. So what do you say to people who are maybe uninterested in this topic or skeptical about, sustainability topics? So how you communicate then with these people and make it conversation engaging and also constructive? Curious to hear how you frame it, basically, this conversation.
Yeah, well, it depends on the person and what their values and worries are. And I think whatever makes someone tick, you can always find a way to engage that topic and make the link towards sustainability. Because sustainability practically touches everything in our lives. It touches the economy, it touches our happiness, it touches our future, it touches our today's, our food, whatever makes you tick, it touches. So I think if you have a one-on-one conversation with someone, just be very curious about what makes you tick, what is important, what are your values, what are your underlying assumptions, and then find a way to make the link towards sustainability. And then I have 3 ingredients to touch on. And the first one is to highlight that something is going wrong in that aspect, whatever the link is. So, whatever that makes that person tick. What goes wrong? And it's a big problem. Just name it as it is. Don't be shy about naming the impact, how huge it is. Then the second one is that we can do something about this. We can prevent this from becoming worse. We can make a difference. You can also make a difference yourself. You're not helpless. And the third one is to talk about what it brings you, so the benefits of making the change. And these 3 things, so the problem, what is going wrong, there is a risk or a problem. The second one is the you can do something about it, and the third one is the benefits. These 3, if you use them as a triple storytelling, I find that really makes people tick, makes people change the way they see they look at this, especially if you can touch on something that the person really cares about or finds important.
Maybe let's move a little bit, and if you can talk a little bit about the approaches and strategies that you found most effective in helping people to move beyond small symbolic actions, and also at the same time feel motivated to make meaningful, more sustainable changes in their daily life.
Yeah, so what I find that really helps people is that to give them a simple explanation of how impact works, and also to make comparison. Not simple in a sense, not to simplify the contents, but to explain it in an understandable way. Because on the one hand, you have the studies and the scientific texts and the big reports, and yeah, you have to really be very hardcore to want to dive into that. And on the other side, you have very simplified lists or things that are skin deep. So, and I wanted to be in the middle. I wanted to make something that people can easily understand, but doesn't compromise on the messages. So, yeah, complex information told simply. So that is the one thing that I find that really helps. And I draw. I make graphics, and those are way better for people to understand complex information than text. So that also helps. And what I also find that really helps people is to put impacts into context. So what we see is, for instance, a few years ago we had a big hype about avocados, which are really, really, really bad for the environment. But if you put it into context, it's just a minor detail. And meat is so much bigger. And but just to look at one thing, pick it out, and just cursing it with all the bad things that it does, but not looking at the context, not placing it within an impact top 10, for instance, makes it really hard for people to understand the scale of what is bad and what isn't. So what I always try to do is to make comparisons and to put it into perspective. And I find that my impact top 10, the impact top 10 of the average Dutch consumer, is really helpful for people. I think that's the key information of the book also. It compares the different things that we do in our daily lives as consumers for the average Dutch person. And then we also made a web app from it. So you can also find out what is your own impact top 10 compared to the average Dutch person. And that really helps, because then you can see, oh, it is my car, or oh, it is my house. Oh, I never knew. Or products or clothes or whatever it is that makes your impact higher. And also, what also helps is the fact that I compare that to, or put it on a scale of how many Earths would we need if everyone lives like you do.
Yeah,
That also helps. It just makes it more easier to grasp. Whereas tons of CO2 is just something abstract, doesn't say anything. It doesn't tell me anything. I can't imagine what a ton of CO2 looks like, or what it does, or what it is. It's too abstract. So I always try to translate abstract information into something that you can get a feel for, or get a feel for the order of magnitude. So those are things that I use to make the information, this complex information, easier to grasp.
Yeah, I can also add that I attended your presentation during Amsterdam Public Health Conference. On sustainability, and it was very, very interactive. And also, your books are very interactive, of course. So that is also very nice, because, well, it is nice to add something to the text. It makes it a bit more visual, a bit more like you really see, especially as you mentioned, like, that you compare how many Earths actually you need if you go with the consumption like this. So you understand, oops, we only have one, so game over. So it's kind of very fast as well. And I think it's very, very efficient. And maybe if you can talk a little bit also about your books. It also looks that they are like interconnected. And did you, from the very beginning, had like, in your mind, 3 books, like, 1, 2, 3, or how like it evolved actually? So just curious, because it looks like from one goes another, the problem, then like, the how to solve it in a sense, right? And then if you can talk a little bit about the books, how your idea evolved then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the first book is about hidden impact, the topics we just talked about. And within the first book are these 3 topics, like what is the problem, what is hidden impact, what goes wrong in the bigger picture if we continue like this, and what can you do about it. So these are the 3 parts of the first book. Now, when I started my journey in 2014 on the couch, I had no idea I was going to write a book about it. I just started investigating and thinking and writing, and I made a bookazine about it, of a booklet of 40 pages, and it just evolved into a real book. And I never thought I would do that. So then it was there, and it was. I never thought it would be bought so many times. I mean, it's about 30,000 times sold now, so it's really well read. So I never expected that. My friend said when I wrote it, like, nobody is interested in this. What are you doing? You're a good designer. Just keep doing what you do. This book doesn't make any sense. So that was what I also believed. So that was really cool that people were interested in this topic. And then I thought, okay, there's one thing missing in this book, and that is to talk about the benefit. So, like I said, the problem, the solutions, but then the benefits. I thought this book was a bit short on the benefits. So I thought, okay, what if I can make a book about what 2050 would look like if we start doing everything right today? And to show what it brings society if we do this. So that was my first idea for the Happy 2050 scenario. But then I started thinking, okay, but what are the right things? And why do we actually make this hidden impact? What is driving the economy to do this? And then I started to investigate, and it kind of went haywire. Just crazy. It's a big book, 500 pages. I think 100 topics that are all linked to sustainability, and also to the impact we have on people on the other side of the planet. The fact that we are harming their health and their well-being and their welfare also. So the inequality in the world is really big. And I dove in all these topics from the position of women, discrimination, even drugs and health and corruption and economy, capitalism, all these different topics. And they all seemed to be separate topics, but I wanted to understand how they are interlinked. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a complex book, and still I hope it's really still easy to read, but I think it's more kind of an encyclopedia than a book to read from A to Z. But it was really a very deep dive for me to understand what causes our unsustainable economies. And it gave me a deeper understanding of the drivers behind it. And when it was published, it was in the Corona period. And it didn't get so much attention, also because it was a very big book, of course, but also because we are really distracted by the disease and the lockdown. But then I wanted to get back to the core of this book, because it was so broad, touching on so many subjects, that I wanted to get back to one topic that's really the main driver behind everything. So I took out the part about the economy, and I started to investigate even further. So I thought I touched upon everything, but I kept thinking and thinking, and then in the end I found that there is one thing behind it all that drives us into this unsustainable economy, and that is the fact that economic decisions are actually taken in a very undemocratic way. And you have wealth accumulation. So inequality creates poverty and wealth. And this wealth accumulation at the top creates power imbalance. So money gives power. And this is the thing that drives, in the end, also drives sustainability or unsustainability, because the economic decisions are taken by the people with money, the people that want to make money, but they are not taken by the people who feel or suffer from the consequences of these decisions. And that is undemocratic. And in that way, it's easy to cause harm to people or the environment because they can't do anything about it, because they don't have a say in these decisions. So that's why you should start to really change the whole system. It's the way we take the economic decisions.
Yeah.
And that's my new book.
Yeah. And your new book is coming out 23rd of March, right? 23rd of March. So when our podcast is live, it's already out, probably. Everyone can buy it. And do you already have idea for the next book? Because it looks like, a first book kind of was a succession to the second, and then a little bit from the second to the third, right? So yeah, we can expect already a fourth book. Do you have already idea or something? You don't need to say what it is exactly, but
yeah, with first book, I also made a little booklet to make it really practical for people to just start following 5 steps to become eco-positive, as I call it. And I'm thinking with this book, and that's for consumers mainly. But I'm thinking with this book, it's really about systems change, and it really applies to big corporates.
Yeah, policymakers,
and economists and bankers and the financial sector and politicians I might want to make a booklet to make it really practical on how to start with democratizing the economy. I call it the trias economica, like trias politica, but then for the economy. So how to implement it? The implementation of the trias economica, just making it really practical for businesses, the financial sector, and governments to apply it and to start doing it. So, but I'm not promising anything, but that's the idea that I have now for my next book.
Yeah, let's see. Well, good luck, definitely. And you created books, workshops, tools, lectures to empower people to act. Which of these approaches has surprised you the most in terms of actual impact?
I think it's the online tool that the test, your top 10 test. It makes a huge difference for people. If they fill in the test, they are it really sticks. It's stuck in their minds.
Is it available in English as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we put a link.
My hidden impact.
We put a link in the show notes.
Yeah. So that's kind of surprises me. Yeah, they all have their own benefits. I don't know if there are many surprises anymore because I've been working on this for so long. But they all have their different benefits. So the trainings are really in depth and people really get well equipped to make changes in their work, effective changes, and they really get on a different track. And it's a very in-depth way to make a change or to reach people, which is very cool. But also, if I give a keynote, sometimes a person comes to me afterwards and they say, I was always thinking that sustainability is like nothing special, not necessary, but now I understand it. You really made me change my mind. And it just happened. It doesn't happen so often, but if it happens, then I really get goosebumps. It's really so cool.
From my side, I must say that I didn't expect anything new, So, but the presentation was really cool. So I even came to you after the presentation, because I really, really enjoyed it, and it was really fresh. And, I also definitely recommend people to watch your TED Talk, and we put obviously a link to the show notes. I'm expecting to do a new TED Talk, updated obviously, because it's already a few years.
Actually, it's funny that you asked this because I submitted the trias economica idea to TED yesterday.
Oh, nice. Then fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. It would be really, really nice to talk about the trias. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Do you also have, because you have kids, if I remember right, and do you have suggestion for parents and maybe educators how to introduce children to the topics like sustainability, consumption, and environmental impact in a way that it's engaging and empowering? It's not triggering or overwhelming.
Yeah, what I do myself is that I just live it, and I try not to talk too much about it because I'm afraid, because in it so deeply, invested so deeply, that I might scare them off. And so I try to just do it, and not to overwhelm them too much with information. So, but I find that you better reverse the question, because the children are the ones that make the parents change their minds, not the other way around. So we also have educational materials for primary schools. And we find that the children are really enthusiastic and really open to the subject. They find it very important, and more important often than adults. And they can bring it home and talk about it to their parents. And I speak to adults who tell me that they made the big changes in their life and become more sustainability because of their children who wanted to eat vegetarian or talked about this and brought it home. So it goes both ways. But for me, it's important to, as a parent, I would suggest live it and show it. You can sometimes talk about it, of course, and discuss things, but never press them to make choices that they don't want to, because I think everybody should be free to make their own choices. And if my kids want to do unsustainable things, I let them, unless it's really, really huge. Then I try to talk them out of it or prevent it. But sometimes I even support them. I mean, we don't fly usually, but my daughter went to Korea for half a year for her study, and I really encouraged her to do so. We did look if she could go by a boat, but it was impossible.
Yeah,
So
it's
she
also
had to fly,
yeah.
and I really encourage her to do that. So that's an exception. Yeah.
No, of course there are always exceptions or something. You always look at the situations. Yeah, yeah, agree. Maybe last question, because I know you're very busy also with the book and presentations. So if you could say to listeners, that they could make one action this week that has both high environmental impact and positive psychological impact, what would you recommend?
Well, the number one impact of the average Dutch person is a very unknown thing for people that has such a big impact. So it is products, buying new things, buying stuff, especially electronics, is really, really bad for the environment. So if you would start becoming more sustainable in your daily life, just don't forget to buy less new products, and especially electronics. But I would start with filling in my hidden impact, the tool, the test, and see what your biggest impacts are, and start with the biggest ones, whatever they are. And if you start there, you know that your efforts are worthwhile. Whereas if you only look at your garbage or just the turning off lights, which are good things, please keep doing that if you started them. But they're small, they're symbolic, and I find it much more empowering and nice, and it gives me a really good feeling if I know that I'm doing something that's really worthwhile, really makes a change.
Yeah.
Because it feels more powerful, and just using your leverage, using the fact that you can make a difference, I think is really giving me a new kind of happiness and bliss. It's also what we find in literature studies about scientific studies about happiness. It's not about spoiling yourself or finding more things to make your life even more easy or more comfort or more luxury. That's all a temporary nice feeling, but it's not happiness. The deepest way to gain happiness is to contribute to the greater good. And that gives you a deeper feeling of being worthwhile and a deeper feeling of bliss. So just the fact that you can make a difference and make a bigger difference is the biggest step towards a deeper sense of happiness.
Oh yeah, very well said. Yeah.
Go for it, embrace it, and enjoy it as much as you can.
Yes, exactly. And I guess actually your tool can show you where you can make a biggest difference, right?
Exactly. It's a really practical way to start.
Actually, one more question about your books. So would you recommend to people to really go in a succession, like of your books, or you would say that people can start with in any order?
You can start in any order, but for most people, starting with Hidden Impact is it's the easiest book to understand. It's the most practical book to just start and make a difference. And the other ones are a bit more intellectual. So if you're into that kind of thing, go for it. But still, I might suggest start with Hidden Impact because it's also the foundation of the other books. You can read them separately, but I think it's a good point where I would recommend to start with Hidden Impact and then go for the rest.
Perfect. Well, Babette, thank you very much again for your thoughtful conversation and for your important work that you are doing. And if you have any final notes for our listeners that you want to mention, where they can find you, maybe some events that you will be like signing books or something that you can share and want to share.
We will have a lot of events in the upcoming months, and they can all be found on thinkbigactnow.org, which is my foundation. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you live.
Thank you very much. We'll put it in the show notes so everyone can find it there. And thank you again. And good luck with your work. Very important. You're doing it for all of us, actually.
Yeah. I'm also in my bliss because I can. At least I try to help the world become a safer place and a happy place for everybody. So it's really blissful to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Psychology Inside Out podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to follow and subscribe. You can also find us on Instagram on psychologyinsideout.podcast, where we update our followers on upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening, and until next time.